the second I heard a girl playing acoustic guitar, and it was like somebody pressed pause, and I walked down the hall, and there was this girl facing the corner that way. She never looked at me. She just played, and I stood there rooted to the ground. And I remember exactly what I thought. Why didn't anybody tell me? I was kind of pissed. Why didn't anybody tell me, that this sound existed? It completely changed my life. It transfixed me, and I knew that was the sound I had to follow because I've always been devoted to following that sound, creating it, making it beautiful, making it pushback revolutionary, making it be snarly. You can do all of that with music. I love to snarl through my guitar. But the second I heard that sound, devotion was born in my heart. Now, how many ways that devotion would manifest, through the revolution, through beautiful music causing, people to dance or fall in love, all that kind of stuff. It has everything. I mean, music has everything you can ever imagine and more.
Hello, friends. It's Donnabelle, your host of To Hum is Human, a podcast where we explore the transformative power of tuning into our intuition to express our passionate purpose. I'm so happy you're here. In this episode, Play Like a Girl, June Millington on writing rock history, we travel into the heart of rock and rebellion with someone who didn't just break barriers, she melted them down and rewired the circuit. I'm so honored to introduce my next guest. June Millington is a legendary guitarist, songwriter, producer, and co-founder of the groundbreaking all-woman rock band Fanny, the first all-female rock group signed to a major label, hailed by David Bowie as, quote, one of the finest fucking rock bands of their time, unquote. Fanny helped redefine what was possible for women in rock, and the world is finally giving them their due. June's story spans decades of fearless artistry and activism, from touring internationally with Fanny and producing albums for artists like Cris Williamson and Holly Near, to co-founding the Institute for the Musical Arts in Goshen, Massachusetts, an internationally recognized nonprofit supporting women and girls in music. Her legacy continues to shape the future of sound, spirit, and sisterhood. Her career has earned her numerous honors, including the Audio Engineering Society Lifetime Achievement Award, the Out Music Heritage Award, and recognition from Berklee College of Music as a rock girl woman of valor. This conversation is about music as a portal, resistance as devotion, and the sacred power of women making sound together. Welcome, June.
Hi there. Yeah, I was just thinking resistance as devotion. I like that. I haven't heard that phrase used just as you said it, but it's really, really true.
Well, June, you started making music as a child in the Philippines with your sister, Jean. What were those early sounds, rhythms, or moments that made you fall in love with music?
They were strictly top 40 radio on ukuleles. And we could pick that stuff up really easily. We loved those songs. They included like Harry Belafonte songs, but Anita Bryant, I love my Callan girl, Neil Sedaka, that type of stuff. Just because you wear a silly grin. That might have been a little bit too past us, but I would have sung that just walking down the street. So top 40 in the 50s was really rocking for me because it opened me up to vibration in the way that it can go right to the center of your soul and just crack you open. And I got cracked right away. Like a coconut.
Well, and it's something like just even you singing those few bars there's a certain joy and happiness that comes in, and they're catchy and they just move, and you can like walk and dance and sing at the same time. It was quite an amazing period. And moving from Manila to California in the 60s must have been a huge shift. How did the cultural transition really influence your musical voice and sense of identity?
Well, number one, it was really hard We didn't know anyone. Our fashions were behind the times. I mean, we both wanted to join American society, but we knew nothing about it. They knew nothing about us. They never even heard of the Philippines in junior high in Sacramento where we moved to. So that was very difficult, but how it informed my music was the second song I wrote was called Miss Wallflower 62. So that shows you how I felt. And
Right.
Gina and I sang it with two other girls. We got acoustic guitars and we sang it. And all of a sudden, the kids at the school, they wouldn't really talk to me, but they'd pass me in the hall and say, I really like that song. And then just keep going. And I go, wow, they said something to me. They recognize us. So that was really, really, really big. And guys say I got into music, for sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I'll tell you what, we just want to make one friend.
Oh,
You know what
wow.
I'm saying? One
Yeah.
friend who seemed to like us and whom we could talk to, who we could ground ourselves in the American experience. I mean, we had no idea of civil rights, of oppression towards Black people. I mean, certainly we felt it towards us, but in a much more minimal way because we're Asian American. But we had no idea of all the stuff that was actually going on, boots on the ground. But we learned it through playing music because eventually, I mean, 5 years later or so, when Fanny was going on the road, we could see it, we could experience it. Before that, we were playing to the Flower Power audiences, and we were playing for a lot of soldiers just about being sent to Vietnam. We play Air Force bases. So by 1966, we were playing for returning Vietnam vets. So we learned what was going on in this country through playing music for the people. And also the songs themselves had like the Young Bloods, come on, people now, smile on your brother. We did that song and we loved it. It's
Mm.
interesting because right after we were promised our contract, but before we moved to LA, so late 68, we did a gig for a high school graduation gig, but the girl was really, really obviously very rich because where this party was her grandmother's house and it had its own polo field.
Wow.
And
Wow.
the other bands playing that day for the kids were the Young Bloods and what is the name of that group Imagine Me and You,
Oh,
you.
right.
I think about you day and night. Anyway, those were the other two bands. So we finished our set and we're standing around outside. There were hundreds of people milling around and manager ran up to us and grabbed us. She said, you have to play again because they fired the two other bands because nobody can dance to them.
That's really funny.
So we beat out the Young Bloods and the whoever. I'm sure they're all nice guys. Kind of met them. We just played in the living room for heaven's sake.
In an enormous house with a polo field.
Enormous, enormous. I mean, that was a very nice afternoon. There were other stories around that
Mm.
gig.
Yeah.
For our purposes, that really serves to say something because Fanny was the Svelts before. And if you're going to understand Fanny, you have to understand the Svelts. We were an R&B rock band. Okay. We were an R&B rock dance band. That's what we were. We played for dances. I mean, the kids wanted to dance and they wanted to dance to us because we interpreted songs on the radio in the moment. My
Mm.
girl, Apple Peaches, Pumpkin Pie, Midnight Hour, Land of a Thousand Bridges, which is why I called my first book, Land of a Thousand Dances. No, I call it Land of a Thousand Bridges became Land of a Thousand Dances became Bridges, right? A Thousand Bridges, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because we walked over many, many bridges we didn't even know existed. The education of June Millington and the re-education, the continual re-education. You mentioned Cris Williamson. Well, that was big for me when she asked me to play a Changer. I mean, I didn't know it was Changer, of course. It was a gig, and I didn't know that she was a fan of Fanny's, but I did the gig. I went and did the session, which was 2 songs. And later on, in fact, she just played here last weekend. She said, June Millington was the biggest star I knew at the time when she met me. In fact, she had pretended to be one of us when we played at Max's Kansas City in New York. She didn't really have that much money, so she just walked in behind us pretending to be part of the band, which is really great. I love that.
That's that's really amazing considering you were the one looking up to her and you weren't really sure, but she was actually looking up to you?
I thought she was really funny. I mean, we just had a lot of fun hanging out. Our rehearsals were mostly laughing, and then we would concentrate on a song. I didn't really understand what she was singing about for a couple of years, to tell you the truth. All I knew was the band that Jean and I and Bree and a couple other girls had fallen into, and we called it the LA All Stars. We were going for a record deal and we didn't get it. So, and Chris had been asking me over and over again, why don't you go on the road with me? We have a good time. And I really didn't believe her. The LA All Stars, totally electric, Cris, an acoustic guitar. I mean, to me, there was no contest. But the first gig that I played with her was in Utah. On stage, I realized I wasn't being objectified, and I realized I didn't have that huge weight of objectification on me. And it really changed me. And playing with Chris was actually part of why I left Fanny, as I knew I needed something else, but I didn't know what. How could I know it was feminism and the
Mm,
feminist movement? It didn't even really exist yet. Yes, there were feminists. Yes, there was a lot of pushback from feminists, but it hadn't reached us boots on the ground. Well, when I played with Chris, it was all boots on the ground, and I had to figure it out for myself. What's happening here? I had no idea. I just went on the road because this record deal went through, and Chris had been begging me to go on the road with her, so I went, and it changed my life. It was walking into a paradigm shift.
hmm Well, if you don't mind just going back a little bit, because Fanny became a historic name. Fanny was the first all-women rock band to be signed by a major label.
No,
First
no,
of
no, that's not first one to record whole albums.
a whole
Yeah,
album
yeah.
with a major label. And first of all, for our listeners who may not necessarily know, although I wouldn't know what rock they were under, but
Yeah.
where did the name Fanny come from? And what was it like to walk into studios and stages that were not necessarily built for women and claim that space with your sound?
I don't think the whole thing of not necessarily built for women really meant anything to us. We get a lot of flack now for the name Fanny, but see, we didn't know what Fanny meant in England, where we became really big a few years later. And we played a lot in Germany as well. The Europeans in general understood what we were doing much more than Americans did. Plus, their engineers could handle our sound. Just
Mm.
simply that, could handle our sounds. Whereas we played the Tonight Show and engineers were tearing their hair out. I mean, literally, they couldn't believe it, what we were giving them. But in terms of how we got the name Fanny, we were going to change our name from the Spells to something. And I heard of this band called Daisy Chain, which actually was pre-Bertha. That was Bertha, whom we met later, a year later. We didn't even know they were Daisy Chain. And I thought, Daisy, I like that. There's a girl's name in there. So I said at our next meeting when we were trying to think of names, why don't we think of a girl's name? That'd be kind of cool. And so Fanny came up and it was thrown in the hopper. I think it was maybe 60 names, all pretty much psychedelic. It turns out the record company and management and us, we all agreed on Fanny. And so it became Fanny. We thought it was just double entendre enough to catch people's attention. We didn't know how much we would be mocked in England. And I think that's unfair because think of your grandmother, Fanny. Would you laugh at her? I don't think so. Or your Aunt Fanny. Of course, we called our house Fanny Hill, which is named after the book, but Fanny was a legit name and people chose to mock us for it. Whereas Steely Dan, for example, is a sex toy. And
Right.
nobody's talking about that.
Interesting, right? Right?
It was it was misogyny head on, and
Yes.
that is what caused us essentially, it caused me to leave the band. It was just we should have broken through by then, and to do that, the work that we did for 4 years was totally exhausting. So I lost it.
At that time, it was just astounding to people to really see the incredible musicianship that your band had together, the cohesive force of these women rockers. How inspiring was that? And there was the sense of freedom and, in a way, some defiance. How conscious were you of breaking barriers while you were doing it?
Oh, we were very conscious of it because of the density of people not believing that A, we could do it, B, we should do it, and C, that we could do it well.
Mm,
And they were so shocked when we got on stage and let be, jeering, or you'd see the guys doing this. And like 5 or 6 minutes later, they're all on the dance floor loving it.
yeah.
So that's how we won them over. We were just good. There's no antidote to being that good.
Mm. I mean, seriously, you just
Yeah.
feel it in your body, in your bones when
And
you
they
know something
wanted
moves you.
to dance. That was the whole thing. And every week there were all these hits. I mean, literally every week, new hits on the radio. Alfie, Walk On By. Do You Believe in Magic? I mean, all these great, She's Not There, Light My Fire. I mean, just every single week. And if it came out on Monday, we were playing it at an Air Force base or a teen club or a high school that Saturday and that Friday and Saturday. I mean, we had gigs lined up. Sometimes we'd do 2 gigs a night. Sometimes we'd go to an after hours place in Berkeley and play there.
Oh my
That was our
gosh.
3rd gig. And we loved it. We loved every single minute of it.
Well, June, you've said before that music is a spiritual practice, that it's
Mhm.
about channeling energy and not just performing. Can you talk about how spirit and sound have always been intertwined in your work?
Well, the second I heard a girl playing acoustic guitar, and I still believe she was an angel, sent to me so I could hear that sound because this was at Assumption High School in the Philippines, 7th graders, right before we moved from the Philippines. She was sitting in a classroom 2 doors down, and Mother Milagros didn't even notice I got up to find out what that sound was. She was the strictest of the strict. None of the kids noticed. It was like somebody pressed pause, and I walked down the hall, and there was this girl facing the corner that way. She never looked at me. She just played. And I stood there rooted to the ground. And I remember exactly what I thought. Why didn't anybody tell me? I was
Mm,
kind of pissed. Why
mm.
didn't anybody tell me, that this sound existed? It completely changed my life. It transfixed me, and I knew that was the sound I had to follow. That's why I like the devotion piece that you talked about, because I've always been devoted to following that sound, creating, making it beautiful, making it a pushback revolutionary, making it be snarly, making it be beautiful. You can do all of that with music. I love to snarl through my guitar. And as I moved so my mom got me a small mother of pearl inlay acoustic guitar from the southern Philippines for my 13th birthday. And the next month we got on a ship to
Mhm.
go from Manila to San Francisco, and we moved to Sacramento. But the second I heard that sound, devotion was born in my heart.
Wow.
Now, how many ways that devotion would manifest through the revolution, through beautiful music causing people to dance or fall in love, all that kind of stuff. It has everything. I mean, music
Mhm.
has everything you can ever imagine and more.
And
That's
more.
what I like, the "and more" part, because 'cause they'll take you to the spheres, and it has done that for me many times, for or to me. I don't know which it is.
Well,
Yeah,
it's music is so interstitial and multidimensional in
yeah,
so many ways, and that's what is so appealing and enthralling about
yeah.
music. Now, you founded the Institute of Musical Arts for the
Institute for the Musical Arts,
Institute
yeah.
for Musical Arts with your partner Anne Hackler, and that was groundbreaking. What was the original seed of that vision, and how has it evolved over the years?
The original seed for me, personally, was that I found myself, how can I say it politely, being messed over by the business aspects in women's music as
Mm.
much as I had in Hollywood. And I found myself complaining about it for like 2 or 3 years straight, and I just got tired of hearing myself complaining. So I thought to myself, "Well, if you can criticize people that much, why don't you see if you can do it any better?"
Mm.
So IMA was and is my healing.
Wow. Just in you saying that, I can visualize and imagine all the girls that go through that
Yeah.
program. What do you see in the young women and girls you mentor now that reminds you of your younger self? And what's different about their path?
I don't know what's different. I mean, I feel like every child who is born has to be taught. We have to reteach all the lessons over and over again. Now, with respect to teaching girls, there's a certain path that I'm very much on. My first rule, which I kind of realized the first year, is first, do no harm. Second, Ann and I determined this place was going to be clean, and by that I mean spiritually clean. If people start to argue, we've got to get right on it and straighten up because we don't want people walking through clouds of distrust or unrest or whatever. That's not going to work for IMA.
Mm.
It has to be clean, which means that it's a lot of work. So whatever comes up, we deal with it like right away, as soon as we hear about it, whether it's with the girls or with staff or with somebody delivering something, doesn't matter. This place is clean. I can tell you that. As clean as we can make it. We're practicing Buddhists, and there are a lot of helpful hints from the universe that Buddhism gives us.
Mm-hmm.
And we take it serious and all. I remember sitting in the living room the first year we were here and reading a Buddhist text and thinking, first it said, choose your friends carefully, choose your friends. And I realized I wasn't being as discriminate because I had a lot of hangers on. I just let them hang on. They were just around me or whatever. I didn't really pay much attention. And they gave me a certain amount of attention. I thought, no, I can't do that anymore. I actually have to cut and I have to be much more discriminatory about who I let in. As a result, people think that I'm a little bit aloof, but to tell you the truth, I don't begin trusting someone till I've known them about 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people go through their changes and they'll tell you what they think they want. But everybody has hungry ghosts.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's funny. That's the second time I've heard that.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
your hungry ghosts don't match, you got to work it out, man, or they got to work it out. A lot of stuff is done through our hungry ghosts,
Mm,
and they rule a lot.
they will. I'd like to go back about your statement when you co-founded the IMA, that it was absolutely part of your healing. Could you just delve into that a little bit?
Well, I would be reading books in which they would say, mostly Native American oriented, and they say, well, when you hear somebody say the same thing, I forget if it was 3 times or 5 times, you need to stop and talk to that person about what it is that they keep repeating, that they're not changing.
Mm.
So that had a huge impact on me. And I would say that that's the basis upon which we work. If we hear someone saying something over and over, or if I heard myself, that's the thing. I heard myself complaining about women's music and how I was being treated. I heard myself saying that over and over, and I just got tired of it. And I said,
Mm.
how can I do it differently? And so that set my feet on a new path. I just either went to the left or to the right. I just did not continue on the same road I was on. And
Mm.
everybody can do that. Now, that's not easy. It's
No.
somewhat easier to just complain, but it's not as efficient as taking a look at what you're complaining about and taking appropriate steps to alleviate what is going on and to help everyone around you. Sometimes it's not even you need to pay attention to, it's the people around you that are causing aggravation. Okay,
Mm.
why are you letting them aggravate you, for example? That's just one example. So it really boils down to mindfulness.
It really does. And
Yeah.
presence and just being aware
Yeah.
of how you are in whatever's happening around you.
Yeah.
And if you could take our listeners to the IMA and tell us what it's like to be one of the students there. What is it that IMA offers these girls that you feel like they don't get anywhere else?
Safety. They know they're safe. They know they're safe. They are completely and totally safe. Even if they get mad, even if they argue with someone, they're safe to do it and it will be worked through. That safety thing is just what makes everything happen. We allow in a completely safe space. This is the magical queendom. And I came up with that maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I said, hey, you're in the magical queendom. And I realized, wow, they are in the magical queendom. And here's the other thing. They know it's their magical queendom because
Mm,
they're inheriting it. They're
yes.
inheriting IMA. It's not stopping when Ann and I leave.
No. And it's okay to be a queen. I think that's
Exactly.
also something about being in the music industry. It's like, am I allowed to really be stepping into my full power? And will I be heard in the way that I want to be heard? How does teaching compare to performing for you? Is there a similar kind of electricity or fulfillment that
No,
comes from
no.
witnessing
When I
someone?
teach, I can't perform because it'll scare
Mm,
them. And I don't even play that much at camp because it really it's like showing off. Look,
mm,
I can do this, but
mm,
they're just trying to put a finger on a string in some cases. And they're moving very slowly in the beginning if they haven't played before. Teaching for me is I don't it's not my favorite thing to do because I have to move so slowly. It's like more like a meditation, you know.
mhm.
Performing is rockets. You
Yeah.
just take off. So there's a massive difference, but they can feel the power of my having broken through all the fears of performing as best as I can, definitely every single time. They can feel that will to succeed. I take a little bit of courage from that, but
Mm.
I find teaching to be really hard. It's so slow.
Yeah. I mean, it must be incredible though. What does it feel like when you witness someone finding their voice?
Oh, it's incredible. It's
Mm,
just wonderful. And sometimes you don't even have to be in the room. You just
mm,
created the spark and they're hanging out and all of a sudden they're writing a song, doing harmonies or whatever. So we lead them to the water and it's their choice to drink
mm,
or not.
mhm.
Most of them drink. And how can they help it? I mean, we've been doing camp since 2002. That's
Wow.
23 years.
Yeah.
And I can't remember all the girls' names at all, but they remember me.
Mhm.
Also, girls like to stop by during their vacations, school vacations, maybe Easter. They want to come up and hang out a bit because they like the vibe of the place.
Yeah.
Not necessarily hanging out with us, with each other, right?
Mm, mhm.
And we're around. And I like that. But when they come to the next camp or however many camps they've come to, what they say, I can tell you the two phrases they say right away. The first one, and it is unbidden, it just comes out of their hearts. I'm home. That's the first thing they say. And the
Wow.
second thing they say is, it smells the same. The barn has a smell, and I am the guardian of that smell. Because,
Mm,
I only have one ear. My left ear doesn't work, and I don't have equilibrium on that side, and I never had it apparently. So my sense of hearing is enhanced. It
mm,
picked up the slack. So I really, really know the smells around me, and I know the
mm,
smell of the barn, and that must be protected because that is the smell of home for
mm,
them, a
mm.
musical home, a heart
Yeah.
home.
You've obviously set a container for this beautiful, safe space to really be vulnerable and
Yeah.
to be expressive
Yeah.
and to be respectful of each other in their curiosity. That's something quite sacred. I feel like that's a sacred container that you've created
It
to
is.
be able to give them that, even
Yeah.
when you're not there. They know that is the moment they step into that barn, anything can happen and it's going to be amazing. Now, you've lived through waves of change in both music and feminism. What gives you hope about the next generation of musicians and activists?
Well, I think this crop of girls, they just know something. They know a lot more than the kids that were coming in 2002. Maybe it's because of the internet, they're exposed to so much more, but they're much more savvy. They're much more savvy. Really, one of our biggest tasks is to keep them off the net because we're like, well, you're here for just a short period of time. Why don't you be here and take advantage of the vibe?
Mhm.
Of what
Right.
we offer you, of all the instruments and so
Mm.
on.
Mhm.
So that's a big job right there, and we do get them to turn away a bit from the internet. That's a really big deal, and that's, I think, the largest and also the parents are trying to text them all the time.
Oh.
So it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, your album, Play Like a Girl, a phrase that has been once used to diminish, right? What does play like a girl mean to you now in your bones after all these years?
It means exactly what I say in the song. If they tell you you can't do it, you just turn it up and play like
Mm,
a girl. I mean, that's what I did. I just kept turning up louder and louder and louder and snarling and got funkier and got better to the point where I was better than a lot of the guys. And now I have an understanding of music that's really from the center. It's like doing Tai Chi.
mhm.
There's really not that much difference.
It really isn't. But words have energy, right? And so the way in which the words are expressed obviously have so much meaning. And when you're saying play like a girl, you really have to question where that terminology is coming from, too, in some degree. But play is big. Play is
It's
the big
big.
part, I feel. Because if you can't play, where's the love in it? Where's the
Mm,
joy in it? And
mm.
such a beautiful and powerful statement. I'd like to go back to rock history because you are someone who has really rewritten rock history in so many ways. Rock history still largely ignores women, especially of women of color. What do you want written into the history books that still isn't there?
Oh, that still isn't there? The amount of songs that I've written that are prophecies, which most of them are actually, as I'm reviewing material to do at shows, and I sing them, and I'm like, oh my God, this song is still so germane to today. It's a teaching tool. It really has surprised me the extent to which my songs reach out into the future constantly. I have a song that I wrote during the Kalashakra with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in 1981. They gave us sweetgrass and told us to remember our dream. And
Mm.
man, I remembered this dream. I was walking up a mountain at the head of my people. I was carrying my niece Marita. We got up to the top and I was just about to say something to her, like really meaningful. And I knew at that moment that the mountain was going to explode and I woke up. And I wrote a song called Early Warning that became one of the band's favorite songs. I can't do that song anymore because I don't have anybody who understands how to play it,
Oh, really?
especially
Really?
Gene.
Oh.
We rehearsed that song to the max and we got it down. It's an
Mm.
incredible tune. Maybe you can play it on your show at the
Yep.
end because it really is incredible.
Are you still writing new
Oh,
music?
yeah. I'm just about to release an album,
Oh my
which
goodness, tell us. Please tell us
yeah.
about it.
Well, it has a combination of songs that I started writing like in 2015 or 2016. I wrote a song called Gods and Foreign Strangers. What really moved me to write that song was I was so mad when I found out the things that ISIS was doing, and especially going up to the hills of northern Iraq and taking the Yazidis and killing so many of them and turning their women and young girls into sex slaves.
Mm.
That really upset me because it tied into all the stories I was told when I was born. Because I was
Mm.
born in 48 in a
Mm.
war-torn country in which
Mhm.
millions of people died. People don't know that in the Philippines. And I heard the stories because I was the first grandchild born to my family after the war.
Mm.
They needed somebody to talk to, and they told me, including my
Wow.
dad. So
Mm.
one of the new songs on the album is called Man from Vermont, and it's about my dad graduating from Annapolis in 1939, and he ended up at the Solomons at the Midway. It was at the Battle of Midway, and he was on the Hornet, which went down. And he
Mm.
told me a particular story that's on in the song. It's pretty harrowing. So, and then there's another song I wrote called Philippine Sand. That's about my uncle who was the only one who survived a Japanese massacre on the beach. My mom's hometown, Leon in Batangas. And then I have one called Love is Still Supreme, which is a deep love song. Let me see. This has to be the one that I wrote recently because it was just in the last few months. What happened was Lee came here to work with me, Lee Jean's son.
Mhm.
He's an engineer and player, plays everything. He's incredible. And I had remembered that when we did my song One, which is on the Fanny Walk the Earth album, every time we got to the place where the song was going to fade out, we didn't fade out. In fact, we caught a fire and became the Smelts. We played like we were 16, 17, and we just could not stop. So I said to Lee, well, let's listen to that because I remember the fire. So yeah, we listened to it and it was all there. And where we cut it on what was the outro to One now is the beginning of my song called Fly High, which
Mm.
wrote itself within 2 hours.
Wow.
And it's about needing to get courage and keep the courage up and do the right thing and fly high. And these days is so important. So I think
Mm.
this is an important song, which does talk about the future, you know. Interestingly enough, it starts on the slide guitar parts that I did for the outro. And then I had added on another slide guitar part just then for, I don't I don't remember what for, but there it turned up. And so it's just slide and hand claps when it starts out. And then you hear me, Jean, and Bree sing One Heart. It just comes out of nowhere. It's just so great.
Wow.
I love it as a beautiful accident.
Mm.
The most
Mhm.
beautiful gift from the universe. They gave it to us. They gave it to us. And I wrote a song around it. So I'm waiting till I come back from Hawaii because Anna and I are leaving in a couple of days to go to Honolulu, where I'm playing with Ruby Ibarra.
Oh, yes.
And then we're going to my brother's on Big Island. And after that, I'm going to do the last overdub on the song, which is Mitch Shakur playing organ on the outro. And I know
Mm.
how he plays. I know how hot he plays. And that will be the pièce de résistance. I have another song that I managed to get Cris to sing harmonies on it because my nephew got married last weekend when Cris was here, and I had miswritten down the date or misremembered it. So I had to turn a whole bunch of stuff around in order to do this with Cris because partly, I mean, Cris has a great voice, but I wrote this song in her apartment in late 70 or early 71. It's just
Mm.
acoustic guitar and me singing. But so she sang on it. So the last overdub that's going to come in is from Jamie Sieber playing electric cello. She plays so
Mm.
beautifully. So
Wow.
this album has there's a balance in the center, but it has
Mhm.
a lot of places where it really dips from side to side.
Well, it sounds like even just the way you're speaking about it, it's almost like you've hit another wave of the way in which you make music.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I would love to ask you what it's like to be going on tour with Ruby Ibarra, because, this is someone who is so right now, so young, number one. And I love the merging of the two of you together as forces. It's almost like your bookends, bringing in this
Mhm.
collective voice to a new generation of listeners and musicians and audiences. Could you speak about that?
Well, Ruby, I met through the documentary because Bobby Joe, the producer, found her. I don't know where, but she was looking far and wide for people she could interview about Fanny. And Ruby is towards the end, and she says, "Why weren't they in my parents' record collection?" And that is something that people say over and over again. She really means it. That she's
Mhm.
pissed. Why weren't they in my parents' record collection? And Jean had her stroke just as our album was being released, Fanny Walked the Earth. And
Mm.
that Thanksgiving, I did a benefit at UC Davis. I didn't realize she went to UC Davis,
Oh my
which I
gosh.
did too for a year. So she came to the gig. I did a benefit for Jean in Davis that Thanksgiving, and that's when I first met her. Ruby is so Filipina. I mean, we had a couple things where we brushed wings. We had to record things and present videos for different projects. So we did that. And then all of a sudden, I got an email from her asking me, "Would you consider singing on one of my songs?" I said, "Sing? Don't you want me to play?" Nobody ever asked me to sing,
Ah.
but she wanted me to sing, and she let me play. Over the course of about a year, I replaced Wita, who sings right before me, but
Mhm.
she had done the part that I sing now. She had done it so I could hear it. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I can't believe she's going to have me replace that. That is so good. But I did my best. And finally, Ruby admitted to Anne earlier this year that she wrote that verse for me to sing, but she never told me that. There's a lot of things she wouldn't tell me. I mean, she didn't tell me. Like I sent her my guitar parts and she didn't say anything. She didn't say, finally, I said, how do you like it? I'm listening to all the time. So she's very Filipina in that way. She doesn't really talk about it too much.
Hmm.
But when she wants something, she definitely lets you know what she wants.
Hmm.
She's not shy about that. She's a true artist.
Hmm.
So I do the rap, the intonation at the beginning of Bakunawa, the video,
Yes.
and I literally did that right before flying to the shoot because
Wow.
I have a studio here, and she asked me if I would do it, and I spent a couple of days. I'd send her and then she said, "Could you do it just this line, just a little bit more, blah blah blah," and I did it exactly to her specifications. So I'm so happy that it's my voice that opens up the song.
It's remarkable. I mean, the whole song, the energy, the vibe, the ferocity, the intensity, it all comes through in that
It's
one
so
song.
Filipino, it's
It is
so
just,
cultural.
oh,
The sounds, the stuff that goes underneath, you know?
really visceral,
Yeah.
visceral. I just
Yeah, yeah.
feel that in my heart and my body. But what was it like for you then to go on tour through the Tiny Desk concert? Because that song kind of propelled you and Ruby in a whole new way to a whole other audience. Because she's like,
Yeah,
she's a
yeah.
rapper, so she has her audience, but this opened her up to whole other audiences as well as you.
It's kinda hard to explain how it feels when you're standing on stage. You
Mm,
see the audience and they're going crazy, but there's a center that you go to, that I go to, that I completely trust, and I am not pandering to the crowd, and when I say pandering, I don't mean that as a bad word, but
mm,
I'm not trying to necessarily please the crowd. They just love what I do.
mm,
And so my job, I feel, is to be as honest as I can in whatever I do. I don't think about what I'm going to play.
mm,
I just let it come to me. And it's so powerful. It is totally Bakunawa. It's totally Filipino, and that all the elements that the culture embodies, which is
mhm,
a lot of cultures, actually. It's not
mhm,
one. So I just wait for it to come to me, and it's a beautiful feeling.
mhm.
Everything kind of disappears. I know that it's all happening, and I know that audience is going crazy. And they, when they hear me play something, they just go wild. It's like, oh my God, she's actually doing it. And when I sing my verse, they just,
I was there. I was there at one of the concerts. I got to witness that, and it was electric. Not
yeah.
just the guitar, but the energy was electric,
Yeah.
and there was
So the
something to it.
vibe is that I'm
Yeah.
in the middle of the stream, but I'm
Mm,
totally at rest. For me, that's what it feels like inside.
mm,
I'm just like I let myself get into a Bakunawa state, and I don't really know how to explain what that is, but
mm.
it's being a crocodile and a dragonfly at the same time.
Oh, gosh. I think I always consider anyone who's doing a creative act, either writing music, singing, writing a book, painting, like you're channeling.
Yeah,
You're
yes, that's
literally
right. You
channeling the
got it.
divine.
That's it. That's
And
it.
it's just coming from the source.
Yeah.
And when you allow and surrender to whatever that is, like it just flows right out of you. And I could see that on stage as you were playing. You were shredding, like everyone was just looking at you because you were just shredding. And it was just so inspiring. So inspiring.
Yeah,
Now,
it's totally Bakunawa. It is. The Bakunawa is a certain thing. It's alive. The spirit of Bakunawa is definitely alive.
well, when you imagine the future of music and activism, what do you see next? What do you hope your legacy ignites in the next generation?
I'll say it again, that the body of my songs are prophetic. That's what I hope people can see, and they can only do that by listening to the body of work.
Mm.
So I hope that is what will happen.
Where can people find you and all the great things that you're doing?
Well, they can go to ima.org and contact me from there, order stuff from there, etc. Because we have all the albums. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Wow. Well, June Millington, your life is literally a living testament that when we dare to take up space, when
Mhm.
we plug in, when we play loud, especially when the world tells us not to sometimes,
Yes.
we don't just create sound, we create history.
Yes.
And I thank you for your fire, your honesty, and for reminding us that music isn't just something we make, it's something we become.
That's right. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stayed with you or gave you a new way to look at things. That awareness, that pause, that's where things start to shift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. You can learn more about my work and what's coming up at sonorous.light.com, and you can follow me on Instagram at To Hum Is Human. Until next time, keep humming.